Greetings, fellow downtrodden and devoted, and welcome back to They Came From Below. This is GSC content at 6++ Gaming. I am your host, Tom, the very lowest of men, and I'm here today to chat about 5 great GSC units for you to test in your games. I've been getting back on the GSC of the Cults recently, following on for some interesting lists breaking through as the book finally starts to see some play. So shout out to everyone who's been doing wonderful things with the book. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. I've been really enjoying it. And I am going to talk today about 5 different units that I've tried in different combinations that I think are really worth exploring in some of the different detachments as you start to go about using GSC in your games. I've not put them in any particular order. And they don't all work as well in all detachments, but I think they all offer something, and they're all well worth exploring, and they're all also very, very cool models as well. That doesn't do you any harm whatsoever. Thanks very much for supporting us. Please do hit like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. Let me know. What have I missed? What units do you like? What other things are you using in your games? And obviously, if you want to come and support us by becoming a YouTube member, you can do that through our channel as well. That would help us massively. Helps us keep producing wonderful content for all of you guys. So let's get into it. I'm going to start us off with a little character I've been using a lot in my GSC games over the last few weeks, and that is the Reductor Sabaur. Now, the Reductor Sabaur is an excellent 65-point character, forward deploy with infiltrate, low knot, and brings a few really useful little tricks for the GSC as well. So she's got her Reductus Mine, which means if a unit comes within 9 of her on a 2-up, they take D3+3 mortal wounds. This is extremely annoying for small trading units, exactly the kind of things that like to go back and forth over objectives in the early stages of the game. So what I often like to do with the Reductor Sabaur is have her hiding just off an objective at the start on one of the flanks. She's very good for doing early cards, doing early actions. She's cheap and cheerful. And if the opponent wants to come and try and trade with her, there's a very real risk that the unit they send or the vehicle they push out, if they want to push a rhino out or a transport, whatever else, that the D3+3 mortals can be quite substantial and dangerous as well. She also gets to use the grenade stratagem for free. I have found that building up your CP with GSC in the early game is very important, and I've had much more difficult games where I haven't been doing that. So being able to get some early grenade mortal wounds going without having to pay for it is really nice. She's also packing a demo charge and a little bit of chip artillery as well. So all round, very nice. I think the main thing for the Saboteur is, at 65 points, she's great, cheap forward deploy. She can block off a lane, give you room for your scout moves. And she's just that little bit more irritating for the opponent to come and deal with than they would like. So really, really enjoying the Reductor Sabaur. And I think she's a plugin that can work in a whole range of different detachments. So she's very flexible as well. Give her a go. See what you think. Next up, I have got a unit for you. And this one is a little bit more niche because I think it only really shines in one of the detachments, but you can use it in others. And that is the Goliath Rock Grinder. Now, the Goliath Rock Grinder, when I was first evaluating it, is quite expensive. It's 120 points, but it gives you an awful lot. It's a bit of a workhorse, all-rounder kind of vehicle. It is T10, which is nice for tank shock. It has got 10 wounds. It moves 12 these days, so it's quick, deceptively quick. And it's also got very reasonable AP2, damage 2, strength 10 combat, so it can blend and fight against marine squads on top of its tank shocking. And you can load it up with either a clearance incinerator to have a decent Overwatch flamer, or a mining laser, which I've been enjoying the mining laser with D3 blast just to get a little bit more additional high AP, high damage shooting in the list, so you're not as reliant on, say, Ridge Runners, for example. And the Rock Grinder really, really shines in Outlander Claw. And that's a big reason to run them. As Outlander Claw is obviously a very powerful detachment. It doubles the OC. This makes a Rock Grinder OC6. So it can go and out-OC greater demons. It can take on Primarchs on objective play. This little truck suddenly becomes a real world beater in a mission play sense. But you also get some great tools that you can apply to it as well. So you can use -1 damage via Devoted Crew, which obviously helps the Rock Grinder to go in and tie up dangerous melee units and keep things it hasn't managed to kill busy. And this combos with the actual unit rule that the Rock Grinder has, which enables it to force desperate escape tests on things falling back from it. So if it starts tangling with, let's say, Deathwing Knights, and the Deathwing Knights decide they want to fall back and punch it, there is a very real risk they're going to lose some models in doing so. So Rock Grinders are great interference, great primary play. They also have transport capacity of 6 and a firing deck of 6. So the stuff inside it can be shooting out with Handflamers or demo charges, whatever else. And in my opinion, I think you actually start to see that in Outlander specifically, the Rock Grinder is well worth 120 points. It just does a little bit of everything. It's an extremely versatile unit. In Outlander, it can also go off a board edge with a strat and come on somewhere else, so you can use them to threaten in other places. And a Rock Grinder with some stuff inside it is a very nice rapid ingress threat as well in this detachment, because it's quick. It can cover the distance with good OC. It's relatively cheap. You don't want to over-invest into Deep Strike, but I think the Rock Grinder is a really, really powerful unit. Offers an awful lot, combos well with other things, particularly in this detachment, and people are endlessly caught out and frustrated by an OC6 -1 damage vehicle. Always that little bit harder to deal with than people were expecting. So yeah, definitely if you're playing Outlander, you want a bunch of Rock Grinders. I'd be interested to know if people have managed to get good use out of them in other detachments. They don't seem like an obvious fit to me, but in Outlander, MVPs, really, really good. Next up, we're taking it to another character. And this one also likes a particular detachment, but actually I think this guy works in a bunch of them. And that is the Abominant. So we're going to shout out Danny Porter, who I've had a lovely conversation with on this channel about Biosanctic Brood Surge. It'll either be out before this or out shortly afterwards, so look forward to that. But the Abominant got a massive glow up in this edition. He is only 75 points. He has got the infamous get back up on a 2-up ability. Really, really powerful. Obviously frustrating when it doesn't happen, but the effect of this is that you can put an Abominant out on a point, solo or with a unit, and your opponent knows that just killing it and shooting isn't enough, because the Abominant has very real risk of getting back up again, which forces a stronger commitment from your opponent, forces them to push out more by way of resources to try and kill him in 2 phases. So this makes him great for doing actions if you take him in solo, but it also means that he's a very real activation lock concern in amongst all the other challenges you're presenting to them. And this is why I actually think he could work in a bunch of different detachments, and I do want to try him in some of the others as well. As far as his output goes, he's got 4 attacks now, strength 12, AP 2, damage D6 +1. So he's basically swinging around with a las cannon with a hammer. Very effective at punking tanks and monsters. And the detachment he shines the best in is Biosanctic Brood Surge, but you could definitely use him in Host of Ascension as well. And I think there's definitely potential play for him elsewhere too. And in Biosanctic Brood Surge, he gains an extra attack, so 5 las cannon hammer attacks, which is really, really good. Combos well with mortal wound strat in there, so when they kill him, they take 2d3 mortals, potentially twice if they're killing him in melee. And he also likes the boost to charge, and obviously Aberrants are much better in that detachment as well, so that's where you'd be taking him with Aberrants. And as Danny has done to great success in London, I think 5-man Aberrant squads with Abominants are incredible value, particularly in Biosanctic Brood Surge. Really, really effective unit. And it's nice to see the Abominant out and about and doing his thing. He's extremely punchy, very obnoxious, and I think 75 points for a get back up again model that is as tough. He's got a 5-up feel no pain, 6 wounds, T6. He's -1 to wound if he's in a unit with Aberrants. That's very obnoxious for its points. And I also think that he combos again great with the detachment. So extra AP off Ridge Runners makes him AP 3 with his big hammer. Really, really effective. And just generally he is a massive nuisance for what he costs. In an army where lots of things are already coming back, having a character that comes back adds to that threat saturation, almost anti-trading that Genestealer cults are capable of. So definitely try the Abominant out. And if you've not started making plans for owning 2 or 3 of these, I definitely would. Now we're going to 2 of the MVPs in the book in general. Okay, so I'm going to start with the workhorse of the back lines and the gun lines, and that is the Ridge Runner. So the Achilles Ridge Runner is just very, very good in this edition. Mostly as a force multiplier, but it's also probably some of our best anti-tank, best in quotation marks, right? It can fire D3 plus blast las cannon shots, essentially, via its mining laser, and it can have a spotter, so it's more accurate than most of our stuff hitting on 3s. And it also gets a bunch of stubber shots, 6 in rapid fire range or 3 at distance, which are twin linked, so quite consistent plinking shots from the stubbers as well. So the Ridge Runner is just at base a great workhorse unit. It's got Scout 9, Move 12, so it can push angles and aggressively attack enemy units very effectively early on in the game. But the other thing I think with the Ridge Runner is just that once you put this into Outlander, it sings because it has the ability to, again, go off board edges, come back on, find angles. It can be OC6 per model, so 2 Ridge Runners is OC12, which is bananas. But also the Ridge Runner's own army rule is just invaluable because every time a Ridge Runner shoots, it can select a unit that it hit, and then the rest of the army gets an additional AP against it. This is already amazing. And this combos extremely well, and you can have a sort of cascade effect going where one Ridge Runner unit is shooting something, making it easier to shoot. Another Ridge Runner might then shoot their mining lasers at it at AP4, but then put their stubbers into something else to tee up a different unit to get additional AP. And this helps the entire army's damage output go up a level and become a lot more punchy than it initially appears. So really, really like the Ridge Runners for that. And you can also, they have a good big footprint with their big bases, so you can screen effectively in your backfield with them. It's really common to have one with a mortar sat at the back, which means you can always get that extra AP to different places because it's got a 48-inch range mortar. And you can take that one if you're feeling brave with the Survey Auger, which gives you remove cover as well. I've been running this. It's incredible to put things like Vindicators on AP4 remove cover because your opponent's entire game plan for using a vehicle like that just completely collapses. So I think the Ridge Runner is really, really effective. You always want at least one or two to be bopping extra AP on things, even in the combat builds. But again, particularly in Outlander, but almost in any detachment, 2 or 4 of these with mining lasers just helps you punch your weight at range from a distance, keep the opponent honest, and get that additional AP to the front lines for some of your other units. Which other units might want additional AP, I hear you ask? Well, my friend, it's the humble Handflamer Acolyte, and that's what we're going to finish up with today. This, again, is a unit that I think for the time being you should be plugging into almost any GSC list you write. They're just fantastic. The era of demo charges has kind of gone. I've played around with 10 mans with 4 demo charges in, and they are okay, but they are only okay. Where these units, where the Handflamer Acolyte really shines now is in MSU 5 mans with Handflamers. Some people take the Cult Icon as well to have some res. Mine always seems just immediately die, so I don't worry with the Cult Icon too much. But Handflamers on these, the key thing with the Handflamer Acolyte is that they are essentially Rubric Marines without any caveats. That means that they get reroll wounds against the target if they're on an objective, where opponents often like to put things. But they also just get reroll ones innately. So this is a good punchy little unit. It can come in via reserves. It can drop in and from vehicles, yeet out 9 from transports, fire from the firing deck of transports for a little while before emerging. And the crucial thing here is that they also have a bunch of AP1 damage 1 melee attacks, and the leader has AP2 damage 1 melee attacks. So between the Handflamers, rerolling everything with +1 AP from a Ridge Runner, and then the melee weapons, rerolling everything with +1 AP from a Ridge Runner. They also have grenades, so you can lob a grenade in there on your way in. These little units are more than capable of doing a substantial amount of damage to units in ways that people aren't necessarily ready for. And they're obnoxious because they're obviously one of our prime Cult Ambush Resurrection units as well. So the opponent has a real hard time deciding if it's worth overwatching them or dealing with them because they know that every time they take out a Handflamer unit, there's a very real risk it's just going to pop up somewhere else and start harassing a different part of the board, maybe getting in behind them, start hurting their chaff. And these guys are fantastic for stripping the screens off the opponent, but also doing a deceptive amount of chip damage to larger targets because rerolling everything, AP1 ignores cover, and then lots of AP2 and AP3 combat if you buffed it with a Ridge Runner is not nothing. And they punch well above their weight. And so I think they're probably one of the most valuable units in the list at the moment. They're also cheap enough that if you just drop in via Deep Strike and do an action or score of cards, that's fine as well. And that's very, very effective too. So I think they are, if there's a unit in the book that's too good, it might be the Handflamer Acolytes. So we'll have to see how things play out in the future. But they are, incredible value in MSU 5 mans. As we'll get to in future guides, I think MSU and smaller squads is just a generally better way to play GSC right now because we're stuck with this Cult Ambush mechanic. So the more chances you have to proc that and start that, the better, because the more resources you get back, the longer you are able to stay in the fight, and the better chance you have of overwhelming the opponent towards the end of the game. So definitely chuck some Handflamer Acolytes in your list. I'm sure you've got them somewhere. Really, really good value. And you can, as I said, one tip is either with the Primus in Host of Ascension or with the Assault Commando enhancement in Outlander, you can still get a little bit of that rerolling hits, rerolling wounds, demo charge energy. I just don't think it's as effective as it used to be. And again, it's investing a lot of points into one activation, which doesn't really seem to be how GSC currently function in the game at large. So that is it for me for this time. I really hope you've enjoyed the video. Let me know what other GSC content you would like to see. Thank you so much for all your support. Please do hit like and subscribe. Please do leave us comments. Let us know what you thought and whether there's any units you've been trying that are really working really well for you. Obviously, you can support us on YouTube by becoming a YouTube member too. That's it for me. I'll be back again very soon. Lowest of Men out. Bye.